This week on Supercars Talk, Shane van Gisbergen crashes his mountain bike. We're talking wildcards, and Erebus has confirmed what type of car they're going to be running next year. The big news of the week, Erebus has come out and announced what type of car they will be running next year, and shock, 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 horror, it is going to be a Camaro. No surprises there. So actually the big news of the week, Shane van Gisbergen crashed on his mountain bike. They didn't actually say in the report whether he broke his collarbone or not, but he has had a plate inserted. So to me, that probably means he's broken his collarbone, if you need a plate in there. This puts him in doubt for Sandown. Currently, the team has said he'll be fine for Sandown. He is sitting out the GT Championship. I don't know if it was this weekend or next weekend at Phillip Island. I think probably next weekend, because as I'm recording this on Monday, which is a long weekend in Melbourne, the racing probably didn't. I probably would have heard about it if it had taken part, so probably next weekend he's not taking part. Anyway, let's not get too carried away with all of that. So, will he be at Sandown? It's a pretty serious thing if you're getting a plate inserted. I've never injured a collarbone. I've been lucky enough in all of my bike accidents over the years to not have that serious an injury, so I don't know what the length of the recovery and things like that. Shane is an athlete, so he will recover quicker, but if he isn't to take part in the round, who's going to drive the car? They have a plan B in place, so one would assume Tander or Feeney. It's an off weekend for the Super 2 guys, so Feeney could slot in there. Once again, though, I don't think it's going to be Feeney in that car next year, and I don't think they're going to put Feeney in that car for Sandown. I think putting him in so early is just rushing it too much. I think if that's the ultimate plan, to put Feeney in, replacing Whincup, I would personally think that this year he does Super 2. Next year they place him at Techno Team Sydney or MSR or something like that, and then the year after he takes that seat, or next year maybe he does some wild cards with a Super 2 campaign or something. I can't. They haven't even put him in anywhere for the Enduros yet, so I can't see him making that leap. I think it would not be beneficial, for his progression to make the jump up and put so much pressure on him. I think, putting 888 on the car and Red Bull sponsorship and that this year is a lot of pressure on the young kid. So I think plan B is Tander for Sandown. That's if Shane isn't fit enough to race. Speaking of wildcards, Tickford has come out and said that Randall is in line for 2 to 3 wildcard appearances this year. No surprises there, and that they are going to be sticking to 3 cars at Bathurst, so there won't be any special Randall, Kelly, Castrol tie-up in a 4th Tickford racing car at Bathurst. There also is rumours of a Walkinshaw Andretti United Kurt Kostecki wildcard at least one, maybe more rounds this year too, which is a bit strange, but apparently that was part of his co-driver deal last year, that COVID kind of put a big spanner in the works, and these drives are owed to him from last year. It's strange because it looks like he's going to be a Matt Stone Racing co-driver, and he is not part of the Walkinshaw Andretti United co-driver lineup for this endurance campaign. And a little bit of news for next year. is looking increasingly unlikely that Super 2 is going to be running Gen 3 cars next year. The idea was that everybody, essentially to stay competitive next year, the Super 2 guys are going to have to go and buy Mustangs and ZB Commodores to be competitive. So if they're going to go and buy new cars anyway, why don't they just go and buy Gen 3 cars and everybody's on the same thing? Everyone gets the cheaper cars. I think the big stumbling block on that one would be that essentially forces all of the Super 2 guys to go and buy new equipment. It makes it very hard if you're running Gen 2 against Gen 3 cars in there, because some of the teams are probably not in a position to go and buy new cars straight away. So that does. Plus also, a team like, say, Tickford and Brad Jones, they've somehow got to cobble 4 cars together before the start of the season, which things aren't finalised yet. So it's not like they can be, out the back building a couple of cars at the moment. So that's going to put a lot of pressure on them. And Triple Eight have got to build cars for not only for themselves, but for Techno and Matt Stone and Triple Eight. So they've probably got the biggest workload going on. So, and then, they kind of supply Eaglestones and things like that in the Super 2. So that would be a big undertaking to build all them. So it looks like we will see the Mustang and the ZB in Super 2 next year. And then I'd imagine it would probably be 2 to 3 years before we see the Gen 3 cars in Super 2. And they're looking at ways of making the Gen 2 cars cheaper for the Super 2 car guys to run. The big thing would be the engines. It's just ridiculous what the engines cost. Parts, panels and things like that aren't going to be a hell of a lot cheaper between Super 2 and between Gen 2 and Gen 3. So the big thing would be the engines. They've just got to find a way of making the engines cheaper. It's pretty simple, that one. And the final bit of news to cover off this week, some of the drivers, kicked off by Chaz Mostert, have started a hashtag No Social Hate campaign, where they're posting pink squares on Instagram and I assume Facebook and places like that. Basically, because of all the negative comments that can't come through on social media and that, you do see it a lot. People are probably going to point out that I pick on certain drivers and things like that. The real, the personal attacks, I'm more picky on their performance, and not to say I could do a better job than any of them. I definitely couldn't. But, I question why some of them get picked sometimes and things like that. But some of these comments that you see on, especially Facebook comments, are just out of control. Some of the attacks on. And then, the race car drivers have probably got a thick skin, but I imagine this filters down into parts of everyday life. And I've had some pretty interesting comments directed at me over the last couple of years since we've been doing this channel, and at school and things like that. I'm a ginger, and I was overweight when I was younger and things like that. So I've got a pretty thick skin when it comes to that. Some people really take this thing to heart. And, maybe I always like to think that, if I'm posting something on the internet or, sending someone a message or something like that, would I say that to somebody's face? And generally, if I wouldn't say that to someone's face, I wouldn't say it on the internet. So, where I question whether a driver, actually deserve that seat or should still be in the seat, I'd say it to their face. A lot of people use the social media as a keyboard warrior. The screen is something to hide behind. that's all I want to cover off on that. Maybe think about things before you post them at times. In channel news, last week I had a little bit of a video up there that my video has been demonetized for me, so all of my revenue, if I actually ever get revenue off YouTube, because of putting those videos up there, it's now going to Supercars. That's all I'm going to say about that. I thought what I was doing was right. Apparently it contravenes copyright laws, so unless I work something out, I'm not going to be able to show any videos up in the top corner. Little bit of a hint of something that might be coming up in the next few weeks, maybe even earlier, depending if I get my arse into gear on that. I do have a bit of a backlog of these things to do. And that's it for this week. I'm still Dave, and I'll catch you later.